We're on Lamed Zayin, Amud Aleph, and it's the first line. It's the first wide line, Ibailo. Okay, the way let's start the Gemara. We'll see what's going on. Ibailo. They had a question in the yeshiva. Mahu lismechbo. What about putting a pot next to an oven that you weren't allowed to put it on top of the oven, on the stove? You weren't allowed to put it on the stove. So Taisus explains that the Gemara's question is being asked according to several different options. In other words, there is an option here that we hold that just to leave something on a stovetop, you have to do grufa ktuma, which means you need a blech. So we're talking about, according to that opinion, are you allowed to leave it on the side of an oven without a blech? Or there's the other opinion that says that you're always allowed to leave something on an oven without a blech. That's called lahachzer tanan, Hananiah's opinion. According to that opinion, so what's the Gemara's question? If you're allowed to leave it on top without a blech, so what's the Gemara asking about if you're allowed to leave it on the side of an oven?
So lismach, which would mean simply to put the pot next to the fire?
Next to the oven, yeah. So we're not familiar with this because our ovens are insulated. You can't really cook outside the oven. But they had whatever it was, clay or cast iron. I don't know, probably the whole house got hot. If you put something next to the oven, it would cook. So according to this opinion of lahachzer tanan, so you're always allowed to put it on top. So what's the Gemara asking here? Gemara is asking if it's not cooked k'maichel ben drusai, then you weren't allowed to. It was once it was Michael ben Drusai, then you were allowed to put it there. This was in a case where it wasn't Michael ben Drusai. Or maybe we're talking about lahachzer, returning. You took it off the stove, you want to put it back, but you don't have a blech, let's say. Are you allowed to put it on the side? On the top, if you had a blech, you could put it back. Let's say you want to put it on the side of the oven. Okay, so we have different ways of understanding the Gemara's question, and the question is being asked according to each of these ways. Okay, so teicha v'gaba, to put it inside the oven or on top is asur, but to put it on the side of the oven, it's fine. Or maybe there's no difference. It's also asur. Why? Because it's going to cook. In other words, we have the same concern that you may stoke the coals to get it to heat up, to cook. You might be involved in it. So Tashema, come and listen. This is a brisa that we had, a tesefta that we quoted yesterday. There's a twin oven here. One of them, the coals were either removed or covered over with the ash, which we call a blech, or serves the same purpose as a blech. And one of them is not. One of them still has the fire burning in it. So mashan al gabi grufa ktuma. You're allowed to leave your food on the oven that the coals have been removed or covered over. And the Gemara now elaborates a little bit. It says, "V'yafagav de kasalak lehav lamidach." Well, you're leaving it on the oven, that's grufa ktuma, which is perfectly acceptable. But the fact is, you're being saimech to an oven that's not acceptable. You see, being saimech is allowed because it's a twin oven. One of them was good. The Gemara says, "Dil mashani hasam the in the middle of shalat be'avira." I'm not sure what the Gemara means by the shalat be'avira, but I think what the Gemara wants to say is that you're not really being saimech there. You're hanging a pot on the oven. See, it would get caught by the lip of the pot. You would put it in this. It was a stovetop that you would insert it in, but it's hanging there. It's not the same thing as smicha, being saimech. Saimech means you put it right on the side of the oven. Over there, that would mamish cook it. So over there's a concern that you may take the coals and heat it up so that it cooks outside the oven also. But over here, because there's a little bit of a distance, you're hanging it on a stove that's next to that stove. You're not going to stoke the coals in that one to heat. Okay. So we still don't have a proof just because you're allowed to put it in that oven. Good morning, Dr. Stein. I forgot to mention the names. Anyone that needs to refer Shlema.
Okay,
Learning in there.
Okay, Shlomo Gershon ben Duva Mero Leah Bas Anet, Rav Rafael David ben Teriba, Esther Freda Bas Dina, Baruch ben Sarah, Nechama Malka Bas Palima, and anybody else I'm aware of and I'm not aware of.
That sounds like Kol Chamira.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone should have very first name. We're learning in there. Okay. Tashima, we're holding. We did the Gemara's question. We attempted an answer. Now we're up to a second attempt. The Gemara's question was if you can put food on the side of an oven that you wouldn't have been allowed to put on top of the oven. So we attempted an answer. We said that that's not a satisfactory answer. Tashima, come and listen. We're about 5 lines down from the wide lines, end of the line, on 37b, 37a. Tashima, Amar of Safra, Amar of Chia. Safra said in the name of Chia, Kitma. Let's say you did Ketuma. Kitma is you covered the fire with the ashes. So what they would do when you have a campfire, they cover it over with the ashes. I think somehow that helps the next day. You can start it easier or something. So you covered it over, but it means that you're not using it anymore. It's comparable to Arblach. Benislavsa, but it didn't help. It flared up again. Okay, so you did your part. So the statement of Reb Chia was, you're allowed to put a pot next to such a fire. You're allowed to put a pot on top. B'naitlim, you can take it off. Machzirna, you can even return it. Shmamina, what do we see? That lismechnami kitma like it malai. That just to put a pot next to that such a fire, you have to have ketuma, which means you need a blach. Oh, so that means that if you can't put it on top, you can't put it on the side. Umar says, 1 second. You have to look at that carefully. What are the halachas there? It says, naitlin mimena. It says naitlin mimena. You're allowed to take it off. So what do you mean? That naitlin mimena diktani, kitmen like it malai. In order to remove from such a fire, you need to do ketuma. You have to have covered the coals. You can always take it off. So Ella tana naitlin misham machzirin. You said take it off because you wanted to say the words putting it back on. So you're seeing that all of the things that you're allowed to do are not precise. That it's only because of kitma that you're allowed to do this. No, it's not so precise. It says that you're allowed to remove from the fire, and which means why does it say you're allowed to remove? Because it says you're allowed to put it back on. So maybe it says mekaimen that you're allowed to leave it on the fire. It also says samchin, you're allowed to lean it against the stove on the side. Says,
isn't it a kal v'chomer that if you're nightly machzirin that you're samchin?
If you're nightly, yeah, correct. The only question
why did he
is,
have to say both?
Yeah, so but look at it the other way. When are you allowed to be nightly machzirin? That's only because kitma. In other words, the fact that it was nislavsa doesn't ruin it. The kitma, your act of ketuma was effective. Now you're allowed to be naitel machzirin. So, but it says you're also allowed to be saimech. So it doesn't mean that I'm only allowed to be saimech because my ketuma was effective. But if I didn't have a ketuma there, I would never be allowed to put a pot on the side.
Well, why would we have to say both?
We're looking at the diak. The diak is that I'm only allowed to do saimech if I have the ketuma there. If I did the ketuma, and that's an answer to my question: was I allowed to do saimech if if I don't do ketuma. So here we're seeing that only with ketuma I'm allowed to be saimech. Comes out of chumrah. Yeah, enachanami. With ketuma, you're right. With ketuma, so if I'm allowed to be machzirin, so what's your shaila? You can be machzirin, you can do, so you can for sure you can be saimech. We're looking at the diak. It's only with ketuma, but without ketuma, sounds like I can't be saimech. It's a raya that I can't be saimech. So the Gemara says, 1 second, not every word in this is actually precise. The Gemara says, 1 second, no, it has to be precise. Because, I can't return it until I took it off. However, so therefore, Tana Nait Mishim Machzir, that's what it says, you took it off and you can return it. Well, it's a raya. You Saimach is in one place, that's on the side of the oven, and Mekaimen is on top of the oven, on top of the stove. Okay, my Habiala, what is the conclusion here? Okay, this seems like a good raya. Tashema, come and listen. Kirish Esikua begefes veitzim Saimchan la ve'in Mekaimen elen ken grufa ketuma. Here we seem to have a raya. Akira is the two-pot stove. It has a room for, it's a rectangle. It has room for two pots. If it was lit up with gefes and eitzim, which is 2 types of fuel, either wood or the pulp of sesame seeds, so you're allowed to put a pot on the side. However, you can't put a pot on top unless it's grufa ketuma. Okay. It sounds like you are allowed to be saimach. Taisus points out that just because this is a raya that you're allowed to be saimach, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to be saimach directly to a fire. Put something on the side of a fire. Over here, there's a wall of akira in the middle, which would separate between the coals and your pot. It's time just to put a pot on the side of a fire. There's a campfire burning. You put a potato if on the side. You say, no, it's not on the top, it's on the side. That's not going to work. Okay. This is coals that are starting to go out. That's a Hasidic phrase as well. Forget what it's used for. Maybe that it's not connected. There's something, sparks that aren't connected. Or the coals that are starting to go out, or you put on it a bundle of flax, daka. That's considered like covered. Okay. That's a valid blech. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani Amar Rabbi Shia, kitma v'hovera, if you did ketuma, but it flared up again. We had this once before. We didn't say hovera, we said, what was the word we used before? Kitma v'neslavsa. Okay, either way. Mashin ala chamen shuchma kol tzarkan v'tavshel shebishel kol tzarkai. You're allowed to put on such a fire hot water that's totally hot. In other words, that you're not going to adjust the flame anymore because it's perfect temperature.
What's the difference between the huvera and v'nislapta?
Yeah.
Before it says katma v'nislapta, and here it says katma v'huvera.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, that's a good point. I don't know. So on such a fire, you're allowed to put on cham and shuchma kol tzarkan, totally hot water, and the stew that's cooked, totally cooked. Okay? Doesn't sound like much of a chiddush. We turn to the top of Lamed Zayin Amud Beis. Shema Mina, the Gemara is going to try to get a chiddush out of this. Shema Mina mitztamek v'yafalei mutter. The chiddush here is that Mitzdamek means simmering and shriveling. That means that it's like the boiling out, sort of. Everything is drying out. We're seeing that even though it's simmering, even though it's still positive, the cooking that's being done, it gets better the more it cooks. Even though it's improving, it's still mutter. In other words, we don't have a concern that you're going to stoke the coals just to get it to continue improving. So you have cholent. You can probably eat the cholent already Friday night. It's probably already edible. But Shabbos Day is when it's very well done. You leave it more, it gets better. But at that, you're not concerned that you're going to stoke the coals to get just for those little improvements that you're going to get, that it should improve then. Early on, and when it's like hardly cooked, you're going to turn up the fire to get it to cook more. But at those points, Misnamek v'yafalei, I don't have the concern anymore that I'm going to adjust it. It's a chiddush. The Gemara says, 1 second, you don't even have a raya to that. Because Shani Hacha de Kitma, you covered the flame. So you're right. So then we're left with no chiddush. The Gemara says, well, hover, it's strichale. There is a chiddush. The chiddush is that if you covered the flame, even though it flared up, it's not considered like it flared up. You did your part. You put you put on the blech. It doesn't work so well. Okay, it's clear you're megala das that you're not using the fire anymore. I could have thought that maybe it flared up. You're back in step one, in your first position where you didn't do anything. Kamashma, no, that worked. Okay, but you don't have a riot about mitzdamek. If it's still cooking, if it's still improving, if that's considered like nothing. Okay, we're going to have several statements from Rabbi Yochanan from different students. Okay, let's see. Amar Rabba bar Bechana Amar Rabbi Yochanan. It's Rabba bar Bechana, says the name Rabbi Yochanan, Kitma b'hovera. If you covered it over and it flares back up, Mashin ala chamin shuchmu kol tzarkan. You can put on it hot water. You can leave the hot water there because you covered it. And the tavshel shebishel kol tzarkai. And you can also leave a stew that's fully cooked. Bafilu gecham shel reisam. Even if those coals are made from reisam wood. Does it say any type of wood? What reisam wood is? It's apparently it's a wood that makes that the coals last for a very long time. So the Gemara says we need a raya, we need a chiddush from this statement of Rabbi Yochanan. Shema mina mitzdamek v'yafalei muter. It must be that even though it's mitzdamek v'yafalei, you're allowed to leave it there. The Gemara says no, maybe not. Shani hasim de kitma. Over there you covered it over. So then what's the chiddush? Of course you're allowed to put it on. Well, huvra it's strichale, even though it flared up. It's still considered kitma. Where it says, well, hainu hach. You're back to that's the same chiddush from the last thing that we said. Who was that said it? That was Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani Amar Rabbi Shia. Rabbi Shia was earlier than Rabbi Yochanan. What does Rabbi Yochanan have to say this? Well, Gemara says, Gecholim shel reisim etzrichale. Here he's using a different type of fuel. He's using Gecholim shel reisim. These don't really go out so easy. Okay. That's the first statement of Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rav Sheshes Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Sheshes says the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kirish Esikua Begefes Veitzim, a stove that was lit with this type of fuel, sesame things and wood. Mashin ala, the pulp of sesame. You're allowed to leave on top of it. Chamin sh'loi hochmu kol tzarkan. Here we're getting to a chiddush. Hot water that's not fully hot. And a stew that's not fully cooked. Here we mamash have a chiddush. Akar, but if you took it off, lo yachzer. You can't return it unless you either remove the coals from the stove, from the inside the stove, or you cover them over. Kasavar, he obviously holds masnisin lahachzir tanan, that our Mishnah that says that grufa ktuma, that you need to remove the coals or cover them over with ash, is only if you want to replace the pot to the fire. But if you're just leaving it on the fire from before Shabbos, you don't need a blech. Here we have a real chiddush, and it seems to be a conclusion of our whole question, what the Mishnah was dealing with. It's an incredible statement. Okay, after such a statement, Amar Rava says, Tavaya Tinani. I don't need Rabbi Yochanan. I have this from Mishnayos already. So Lishais Tanina. The first part of this, that you're allowed to leave it without a blech, if you're not going to put it back on the fire. It says, you can't put bread into the oven before it gets dark. You can't put cakes on top of the coals. Apparently, they would bake the cake directly on the coals. Probably the bottom of it would probably turn into ash. But you have to put it there before Shabbos with enough time that it should develop a crust. Then if it developed the crust Friday afternoon, then you can leave it there. We're not concerned that you're going to adjust the coals anymore. But if it did develop a crust, sorry, you're allowed to leave it there. And there was no mention of grufa ktuma. And by the way, it's a tanner. If you look carefully, it says einesnes pas betaner. Tanner is a type of oven that only holds one pot on the top. It goes like a I don't know what that's called, trapezoid or something. The heat, it gets much hotter than a kira. Kira is it's a rectangle. This, the bottom of it is would contain a lot of fuel, and then it comes up to like a triangle, but it's flat on the top, and then you can put a pot over there. So in such a type of oven, it doesn't help to do grufa ktuma. In a tanner, taking the coals out doesn't even help. You can't basically, a tanner is not, it doesn't give you much use for Shabbos. You can't, it's not like a plata, it's a blech doesn't work for a tanner. So a blech doesn't work for a tanner. So it must be that I'm allowed to, it's a type of situation where I don't even need a blech. When do I need a blech? That's for lishos. So you see, it's very clear. If you're leaving it there and you don't want to put it back, you don't need a blech. Rabbi has a kash on Rabbi Yochanan that, or Rabbi Sheshis on Rabbi Yochanan. What are you telling me? I know it from a Mishnah.
Maybe there's a difference in kira and tanner.
You mean it should be more lenient in a tanner? I know from a Mishnah that I'm allowed to put it in a tanner. In a tanner, a blech doesn't work. So that should tell me that on a kira, I don't need a blech either. Even with a blech, even with grufa ktuma on the tanner, it wouldn't help. We didn't mention grufa ktuma. So for sure on a kira, and it's the other way. For sure on a kira, I don't need grufa ktuma. If I was allowed to do it in a tanner, lishais, to leave it there for sure on a kira. Okay, that's his first statement. He has another question. He says, you said that you're allowed to return it if you did grufa ktuma. I have a Mishnah for this. Basil says that you could return it. But if it wasn't grufa ktuma, if you didn't take the coals out or cover them over, then you can't. The Gemara says, Rav Sheshes Rav Sheshes is saying in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, those weren't statements that were clear in those Mishnayos. Those were diukim from those Mishnayos. So Rabbi Yochanan is allowed to explain that that's a diuk from the Mishnah. Sometimes we say.
But what about the fact that the pas and harara doesn't improve with cooking, and therefore you were not worried that they're going to be gairif and doing all these malachas, because at the end of the day, these things are going to burn to a crisp.
So the pas, we're talking about that it only developed the crust. And yet, if you leave it there too long, then yeah, it would burn. But what about getting it done right now? While it's getting it done, when they cook they bake, you want it to get very hot. So maybe you're going to adjust the coals just to get it done, and then you're going to take it off. We say that it's not a problem. We said that you're allowed to leave it there, and no one's going to touch it. No one's going to adjust the coals. Why? Because once it developed the crust, then you don't need to play with it that much. It's sort of, I guess our familiarity with this is with a grill. The men at the grill, they're, turning and, all of this. But that's at the beginning. Once it has, it's basically done, then you can leave it already. You leave it over there, you go sit down and you enjoy your food, and you go check on it, later. So once the bread has developed the crust, so we assume that, you leave it, it will finish on its own. So that's a lishais. Leaving it, you don't need to be concerned that you're going to adjust the coals. I think that's that's the pshat. And even on a tanner, which means an akira, even without a blech. Okay, so we had two statements of Rabbi Yochanan. One of them wasn't a big chiddush. One of them was hardly a chiddush. The first one was Rabbi Bar Chanan named Rabbi Yochanan that you can only leave something on the fire if it's bishul kol tzarkai. And even then, only if it's grufa ketuma. Rav Sheshes had a huge chiddush. You can leave it on the fire, even if it's not bishul kol tzarkai. Even if it's not garuf akatim. Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Amar Rabbi Yochanan, another statement. Kirish Yasikol begefes of eitz and mashnal tavshel shebishul kol tzarkai v'cham and shechma kol tzarkan. He says a stove that's lit with this type of fuel, the pulp of sesame seeds and wood. That's the aleph. You can leave on it. They add in cham and shechma kol tzarkan, hot water, and a tavshel shebishul kol tzarkan. They just switch the order. That's what they do. Yeah, it makes more sense to have the tavshel mitzdamek v'yafalei, not the chamin mitzdamek v'yafalei. Then, even though it's improving while it's simmering, okay, that's a chiddush that you're allowed to do that. But it doesn't come close to Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes said even though it wasn't finished being cooked. Very nice Rashi here. It's unique also. Rashi says, you see Rav Sheshes Nami, Rashi Rav Sheshes Nami, Diuka de Mastis and Kamashmalan. You go down one line. Va'anan de mashinan kadeira al gabi kira sheina grufa ad chananya samchinan. And we that leave food on Shabbos, Erev Shabbos, we leave it on a stove that's not garuf. It's because we're relying on chananya. Where does he get it from? How do you know that you can rely on chananya? It says, once there's a crust, you can leave it there. Even though it's not fully cooked. Does
it mean without a blech?
Without a blech. Yeah, because a blech wouldn't work. And there was a tanner. And the masnisin the pirk mishum chazara who the bay grufa avalishes loy v'chol hanemirai das yisav masnisin lishis nan. All the other amiraim that said that it's usher are learning differently the Mishnah. And Rav Sheshes in the name of Rabbi Yochanan says our Mishnah is lahachser tanan. So that would be Rashi is paskening here. We didn't have.
Where's Hananya?
Hananya, what came in yesterday, he's the one that said, if you look on Lamed Vav, Amid Beis, Iboilahu, Haile Yitain La Yachseru, Avlish Smashin, Afapishin Agarf, Amani Hananya, the Tanya. Hananya Aimer, Kosher Michael Ben Rasai, Mutalishes, Afapishin Agarf, Katan. That's his opinion. Yeah, in the beginning of Siman Reish Nun Gimel, Nilcha Shabbos, so the Mishnah Berurah quotes and he has an introduction. He quotes, I think, from the Machzis HaShekel, and basically it's a summary of this blot of Gemara. He summarizes. He says, in order to understand the Shittas over here, you have to have this summary of, and he explains what Hanani's opinion is. Okay. Amar of Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar Rabbi. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that. Amalei Hahu Me Rabbanan the Rav. Okay, we had a statement of Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that the Tavshel Shabishal called Sarkai, you can leave it on the fire. So Amalei Ahume Rabbanan Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda. So this student tells Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda that just said something in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. He says, Rav Shmuel Damar Tavayim, it's Damik V'yafalei Yasser. 1 second. Rav and Shmuel both say that if it's simmering, and it's beneficial to keep simmering, to keep cooking out, the boiling out the water or whatever, shrinking, the stomach could be shrinking. So that's and it's an improvement. So that's aser. Amalei. So Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda says back, Atalesana Yada, Dam Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Mistamik V'yafalei Aser. You think I don't know that? I know. Rav Yosef says in the name of Rav Yehuda, the name of Shmuel, that Mistamik V'yafalei, that if it's improving, it's aser. Ki kamin alach. What I'm telling you is the Rabbi Yochanan kamina. I'm telling Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, who says that it's mutter. Amar le Rav Ukva Mimeshan le Rav Ashi. Rav Ukva Mimeshan says to Rav Ashi, Atun, you, the Mekravisa le Rav Shmuel, Avidik Rav Shmuel. You that are close to the area of Rav and Shmuel, you should go like Rav and Shmuel. Ana Navid Rabbi Yochanan, but we go like Rabbi Yochanan. Where did I see? Someone says that what he means to say is that the halacha is clearly like Rabbi Yochanan. Yeah. Rabbi Hananel has a little elaboration over here. He says that we have established that if there's a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shmuel, the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan. So why should he go like Rav and Shmuel? He says, when you're in that area, then you're supposed to follow that opinion. Amalei Abaye Rav Yosef Mahu Lishes. Abaye asks Rav Yosef, what's the din regarding leaving something on the fire that's not covered with a blech, that it's not grufa ktuma? Erev Shabbos, you want to leave it there. Amalei Harav Yehuda Mashulei. For Rav Yehuda, they would leave it, v'achal, and he would eat from it. This was Abaye asking Rabbi Yosef, his teacher. Amalei Barmine de Rav Yehuda. You can't bring me a raya from Rav Yehuda. Given the Mesukanu, I feel b'Shabbos namishari lemevedlei.
But when it says va'achilei, what he's going to eat it off the fire, does that not mean that he's noitel?
Va'achel, what by Rav Yehuda?
Yeah.
Mashalei va'achel.
Yeah.
What that means is that
lishois means it's just sitting on the blech.
Yeah, they put it there. But Rabbi Yehuda obviously held that it was permissible because he would then eat from it. As it wasn't Rabbi Yehuda that placed it there. It was people placed it there, and Rabbi Yehuda would eat from it, even though there was no blech.
You're able to noitel.
No, so we know that you're able to be lishes. Noitel is not much of a chiddush, to remove it off the fire. The chiddush is that even though there was no blech, they left it there of Shabbos, and there was no problem of maybe they're going to stoke the coals. They would leave it there, and he would actually eat from it. He tasted from it. So So Abaya says, but you can't bring me a raya from Rabbi Yehuda because there's one variable there that throws everything off. Rabbi Yehuda had he would get bulmus. I don't know what bulmus is translated as. It could be, maybe it's like a diabetic type thing where you need to eat or so he needed some sort of sugar, something sweet. I don't know if that's what it is. I wonder how they explain it in the. Anyway, you can't bring me a proof. Rabbi Yehuda, and all the time needed to eat things. He was sick, so that's not a proof to us. Leave a lachmai, amalei. So he says besura masha. In surah, they would leave it on the fire of Shabbos without a blech. The Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Moridovde. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak was medaktik. He was the one that had to wear a yarmulke because he would have ran up a tree. Someone said to his mother that he's going to be a ganav or something. His mother always made him wear a yarmulke. One time it fell off, and he immediately ran up a tree to take some dates or something. Anyway, but he was Mari Dovda. He was medaktik. He was a medaktik. B'maisav Rashi says it was like a big yer shemayim, and umashu leivachol. They would leave it for him, and he would eat from it. Okay, so that's clear that it's mutter. Amar Ravashi, keimna kamei Rav Huna v'shon lekisa daharsan v'achol. Ravashi says, I don't know if it means Rav Huna mamish, unless there's another Rav Huna. There's a huge generation gap. It must be a later Rav Huna, unless there's another Girsa. He was in front of Rav Huna, and they left on the stove kisa daharsana, which is a dish of fish with oil and some sort of flour. So, and he ate it. I don't know what he held. Could be he held that it was mistamek v'yafalei, but it's permissible. Mistamek v'yafalei, it's simmering and it's still beneficial. It's permissible. Or maybe he held that it wasn't mistamek v'yafalei. Maybe it had flour in it, and things with flour would dry up, and it would be it's mistamek v'ralei. Okay, Amar Rav Nachman. Mitztamek v'yafalei is aser. Mitztamek v'ralei is mutter. It's a strict opinion that if it's mitztamek v'yafalei, you can't leave it on the fire without a blech. It's improving. Klala de milsa, kol despei mecha. Anything that has flour in it, mitztamek v'ralei. That's simmering, and it's not good for it. Levarmi tavshel delifta, except for a turnip dish. That even though there's flour, it's still beneficial. But that's only if there's meat in it. But if there's no meat, it's still not good, the turnip dish. It's interesting. You can eat you can eat things without guests differently than if you have to serve guests. My only example I can think of is like chicken wings that you get like so dirty, it's hard to serve that to guests, but you can eat it in your house. But with guests, you needed to serve something that was presentable. So there are certain things that were probably very tasty, but it wasn't enough because it would simmer down and it would shrivel up. So it wasn't something presentable to guests. So he says, if you're serving to guests, then it's mistamek v'ralei. You need to have it more plump. It should be something presentable. So let it simmer, even though it's going to be very tasty, but you're going to give it to them. It's going to be, a few things on a plate. It's not presentable. Okay. So that changes if it's mistamek v'ralei. Lifta, this is some sort of dish with figs. And daisa is a porridge, and tamri is dates. is mitzamik v'ralem. When they simmer, it's not good. They asked Reb Chia bar Abba. Reb Chia bar Abba was the Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan, major Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan in Eretz Yisrael. Shachach kedera al gabi kira bishla b'Shabbos mahu. Let's say, according to, in a situation where you were not allowed to leave a pot on the fire, for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't Michael ben Drusah yet. Even according to Hananya that holds that you're allowed to leave it on the fire without a blech, it still needs to be half cooked or a third cooked, whatever Michael ben Drusah is. Or I guess that would be the pshat. Okay, so if you left it on the fire erev Shabbos and you weren't allowed to, so it cooked on Shabbos. So what's the din? He doesn't say anything. He's quiet. He doesn't say anything. So lemachar, the following day, nafik darashlu. He went out and he said he gave a speech. He gave his shir. He teaches this the following Tosefta. It says hamavashal b'Shabbos. If someone cooks on Shabbos, b'shoigeg, if it was a mistake, he forgot it was Shabbos, or he forgot he wasn't allowed to cook. Yeichal, he's still allowed to eat it. But if he did it b'mezid, lo yeichal. He can't eat it. V'lo shana, but he doesn't teach the case of the question. My v'lo shana. What is it? How do they translate that? What is the din from that case? What did he mean to say? Rabbi v'Rabbi Yosef damri tavaya lehatera. Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef both said that what Reb Chia bar Ashi wanted to say was that you could be lenient here. Revashal the covered maisa, when you actually put something on the fire on Shabbos, you did an action, a forbidden action. B'mezid le'yachal, you can't eat it if you did it b'mezid aval hu. The covered maisa, he didn't do an action. He didn't do an action. He left it there of Shabbos. It was like more passive. He left it there. He just didn't take it off when he was supposed to. So b'mezid nami yachal. Even b'mezid you could eat it. We said shachach. You forgot it there of Shabbos. Even if you would have put it there b'mezid, you would be allowed to eat it. You didn't do a malacha. It's interesting. It's a concern that you might come to do chitay. So if you did it and you didn't do chitay, so the concern never actualized, but you violated the takana because of the concern. So according to this opinion, it says okay, but you're fine. You didn't do the malacha. So you could eat it. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak amar li isura. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says what he meant to say was the opposite. Meant to say is mevashal hu d'layasi larume. No one's gonna put something on the fire on Shabbos mamish and claim that I forgot. So therefore, b'shegig geichal, we trust when it was a shegig, we trust that was a real shegig. Aval hu hai dasi larume. But when it comes to Erev Shabbos, people can tell themselves that they have room to be lenient. We don't even trust the shegig. He says, "Yeah, I did it b'shegig." You see, because it's not a real malacha. You just, I forgot it. I forgot. Used to if you get a stain on your tie, so it's hard to come out. But they used to spill seltzer or something. Somehow it makes it, the seltzer cleans it. So they would say, I spilled it. It was a mistake. I spilled it. So it was like a small thing. Anyway, to mamish take a pot and put it on the fire on Shabbos, no one's going to do. But on Erev Shabbos, he's going to take a pot, put it on the fire. I'll say, mistake. I forgot. I mamish forgot. Forgot to take it off. So in such a case, we have to be strict on him, that even b'shegig. So there's a machlekes here, Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef versus Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak. Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak that we just had before. Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak is strict. Meisrei, the Gemara has a question. Shachach kedeira al gabi kira ubishla. If you forgot a pot on the fire, and it cooked, bishla b'Shabbos, cooked on Shabbos. Shegig yechal b'mezid la yechal. Right away, we see there's a difference between a shegig and a mezid. This is going to create a little bit of a problem for either side, because Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef didn't have a difference. Shegig and mezid, they said even mezid is mutter, and it's a problem. Going to be a problem for Menachem bar Yitzchak, who says that even shegig is aser, because here there's a distinction. When do we say there's a difference? If they were called tzarkai, if they weren't fully cooked. But if it was fully cooked, then you can still eat it. That's whether shegig or mezid. We're talking about you left it there Erev Shabbos. That's Reb Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says that if it was hot water, so then mutarin, because that's just simmering doesn't do any improvement. It just boils out. The tapshel shebishal kol tzarka, it's also stomach v'yafalei. V'cholam stomach v'yafalei, anything that's improving as it's simmering, going kruv, upulin, ubasar taruf. Kruv, what is kruv? Cabbage, and pulin are beans, and basar taruf is probably like ground meat or pulled meat, pulled beef, which apparently wasn't something that you could serve to guests. So if you can't serve it to guests, so that's us. Then it's mitzamek v'yafalei, because even though it's going to boil down into much smaller amounts, simmer down into smaller amounts, it's an improvement because you're not going to need to present it. That's aser. Is mutter. Whatever the case is, katani miyas tavshel shlei bishul kol tzarkai. If it wasn't fully cooked, we said that there's a difference between shegig and mezid. So it's a kasha on Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, it's a kasha on Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef. The Gemara explains. Bishlem Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak like kasha. We can explain Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. He said that we're going to be very strict. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak on if you forgot it before. It says kan kaidim gzeira kan lacher gzeira. There was a gzeira, which we're going to see in a moment, which caused us to be strict. So before the gzeira, there was a difference between a shegig and a mezid, which that's what we learn in our, what is this, a Tosefta. And after the gzeira is when Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak was explaining Reb Chia bar Abba's silence about this, because he was saying that it's only on Shabbos where you have the distinction, but after Shabbos, but on Shabbos we have distinction, but if you leave it there from Erev Shabbos, then you have to be machmer. That's because he was referring to after the gzeira. But Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, they say that forgetting something on Erev Shabbos is lenient, according to Reb Chia bar Abba. Even if it's a shegig, it's mutter. Even if it's a mezid, it's mutter. Ikaidim gzeira. If it's before the gzeira, kasha mezid. So then why does our Tosefta say b'mezid it's aser? Reb Chia bar Abba said it's mutter. Ilach gzeira. And if it's after the gzeira, then kasha nami shegig. Then it's a kasha even on shegig, because they both should have been asers. Gemara says kasha, you're right. Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, this is going to come out as a kasha. My gezerta. What is the gzeira that we're discussing? Damar Rav Yehuda bar Shmuel, Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Kana, Amar Rav. There's a lot of names there. Rav Yehuda bar Shmuel says the name of Rav Abba, and the name of Rav Kana, and the name of Rav. Originally they said, I'm a vashal b'Shabbos, someone that cooks on Shabbos, b'shegig yoichal, b'mezid lo yoichal. That is, b'shegig you can eat it, b'mezid you can't eat it, v'hu adin l'sheichayach. And the same thing is if you forgot it. If you forgot b'shegig, you can eat it. If you, I don't know if you forgot b'mezid, that means, b'mezid means you left it there on purpose before Shabbos. Then it would be aser. However, however, this would be so common that people would just put it on the fire before Shabbos and then conveniently forget about it. So then they said we have to make a knas, a gzeira, and they made a knas on the shecheach as if it's b'mezid. Okay. Now we have a very interesting situation here. Yesterday we learned a machlekes between Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. What you're allowed to leave on the fire. Reb Meir held that there's a machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, where Beis Shammai says nothing, and Beis Hillel says only hot water. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Beis Shammai says hot water, and Beis Hillel said hot water and a stew. That was yesterday's Gemara. Today, we just learned the Tosefta, where Reb Meir says that if you left on the fire chamen v'tavshel, even if it's mitzdamek v'yafalai, it's not a problem. Rabbi Yehuda says only hot water is acceptable, but the stew, that's mitzdamek v'yafalai, it's a problem. And we're talking about that there's a knas, you cannot let her eat it. She did it. It seems like they switched opinions. Kasha de Reb Meir ad Reb Meir, Kasha de Rabbi Yehuda ad Rabbi Yehuda. It's a kasha on both of them. Each one's saying the opposite from what they said yesterday. Yesterday, Reb Meir said that Beis Hillel only holds hot water is acceptable to be put on the fire, to be left on the fire. No stew. Today he says that if it was left, whether it's water or stew, it's acceptable. And Rabbi Yehuda that said yesterday, Beis Hillel says water and stew you could leave on the fire. Today says only water is acceptable if it was left on the fire and not the stew. The Gemara explains like this. The Rameh like kasha lechatchila diavad. Yesterday, we were talking about lechatchila, what you're allowed to put on the fire. He said only hot water. Diavad, if you left even a stew on the fire, it's acceptable. It's not a problem. Yesterday we were talking about an oven that was garafikatum. He said you could put on hot water and a stew. Today we're talking about an oven that's not garafikatum. He said you're only allowed to leave hot water. Or if you left hot water, it was acceptable. But okay. Ibaylahu. Over b'shamai. Apparently, the Gemara is asking what the psak is between Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, if someone actually left it on the fire. Mi konsur rabbanon Eily, is there a knas? So Tashema, come and listen. Damar Shmuel Bar Nasa, Damar Rab Chanina. Shmuel Bar Nasa says in the name of Rab Chanina, Kashalach Rabbi Yosi Litzipayri. I don't know if this is when he was exiled, but could be if the Girsa that Rabbi Yosi was one that was quiet, was exiled to Tzipayri. So here we have when Rabbi Yosi went to Tzipayri, there was other Gersa there, that he was exiled from Tzipayri. Okay, he was the Rav in Tzipayri. And Matzachamin Shenishto al Kabikira V'leyasalem. There was water, hot water that was left on the stove, and he didn't say that it was aser. Beitzim Mitzumakis, there were eggs that were simmering. Shenishtal gabikira that were left on the stove. Vaslam, he said that it's aser. Oh, well, he said that they can't eat it. My love likes the Shabbos, he said that they weren't allowed to eat it. So it's clear that something that you're not allowed to leave on the fire, you can't eat. Gemara says, Loi, that's not what happened over there. The Shabbos Abba, he told them the next Shabbos that they're not allowed to put it there. But eating it, they were allowed to eat it. Okay, so we don't have a psak of a Visha. Michlal, sounds like the beitzim mitzumakis mitztamkis v'yafis leninu. It must mean that eggs, when they simmer on the stove, they're improving. Is that really so? The Gemara says, yeah, they're improving, sitting on the stove. And most places I've been, it turns green, and if it cooks too long. Damar Rav Chama bar Chanina, pamachas nisarachti ani v'Rebbe l'makom echad. Rav Chama bar Chanina says he was together with Rabbi. Rabbi Chanina was a student of Rabbi. This is Rabbi Chanina's son. Rabbi Chama bar Chanina was together with Rabbi. They brought eggs that were simmered down to the size of those radim, I think are crab apples. We ate a lot of them. They were delicious. So it simmered down. It got smaller and smaller. I don't know exactly the recipe, but apparently it's mitzamek v'yafa. Basil Aimer Maf Machzirin. Basil says you can put it back on the fire. Amar Rav Sheshes L'divrei Aimer Machzirin. Rav Sheshes says, according to the opinion that says that you can return it to the fire. Machzirin afilu b'Shabbos. You can return it to the fire even on Shabbos. This is a very confusing Gemara. Rashi learns always Chazara meant on Shabbos. It was on the fire. You take it off the fire and you put it back on. So what does it mean afilu b'Shabbos? Rashi learns we're talking about when I'm taking it off Friday night, I know that I'm putting it, when I took it off, I probably had in mind to put it back on so I should have what to eat for tomorrow. So I have no doubt that his intention when he removed it was to put it back on. But what about Shabbos day? When you take it off the fire Shabbos day, are you allowed to put it back on then? Then your intention is not so clear that it's when you took it off that you had intention to put it back on. So machzir nafilu b'Shabbos, even if it's Shabbos day, you can remove it and still put it back on. Tosfos learns different, and the Ram learns different, but it's a complication. Rabbi also holds that. Rabbi says, Rabbi says one time we were standing above Reb Chia Rabba. Kumkus. Is that kumkus? Kumkum. It's, I don't know what the kumkus it says. Shalchamin. Medita tachtena ledita alyana. Umazagnu lai esakais. V'echzirana limkaima v'leyamalana dava. We see we were by Reb Chia Rabba. They brought up this hot jug of water from the lower floor up, and then we returned the jug to the fire. We returned the pot to the fire, and he didn't tell us anything. It's clear that you can return a pot to the fire. Rab Zrika, Rab Abba, Rab Tadai. Rab Zrika says in the name of Rab Abba, in the name of Rab Tadai, that's only if you're holding it the whole time. But if you put the pot down, you can't put it back on the fire. Amar Rabami. Rabbi says, Rab Tadai David legarmehu David. Rab Tadai, don't trust this. That was his own opinion. No one holds like that. Elahachi Amar Rab Chia Amar Rab Yechanan. Really? Rab Chia. Yeah, so says Rab Chia in the name of Rab Yechanan. Afilu inichal gabi karka mutter. Even if it was placed down, you can still return it to the fire. Pliki bar Rav Dimi Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda. There's a machlekes Rav Dimi and Shmuel bar Yehuda. Tarvaya mishmei de Rebbe Lazar. And both in the name Rebbe Lazar. Amri, they're saying. One says that if you're holding it, you can return it. But if you put it down, it's forbidden. The other one said, no, even if you put it on the ground, it's mutter. Amar Chizkiya mishmei de Abaya. Chizkiya says, in the name of Abaya, this you said while you're holding it, you can return it. Only if you had the intention when you took it off that you're going to return it. But if when you took it off, you thought you were going to leave it off, then it's aser. Michlal, but that implies that if you put it down, even if you had intention to put it back, it's still aser. Ikada Amri, there are those that say this differently. Amar Chizki Mishmeda by Hadamar al Gabi Karka. So this that you said that if you put it down, it's aser. That's only when you didn't have intention to put it back. It's mutter. But if you had intention, it's going to be permissible. Michlal, but that implies that if you're holding it off, it's mutter. Even if you didn't have intention, you can put it back. Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah, Talam b'makal. Let's say you didn't put it down, but you're also not holding it. You have it hanging. You put it on some sort of hook, stick. Hinichal gabi mita. You put it down on a bed. I hope it's wood or something. Mahu. Let's say you changed pots. So the new pot wasn't in your hand the whole time. So what about that? Is that changing the pots? Does that make it that you can't put it back on? Umar says teku. We're machmer in these